Continuing in our passage, Matthew chapter 11, in verse 13, for all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. Many people have taken their cues from this passage to say, well, the Old Testament was relevant until the beginning of the revelation of the New Testament that starts with John's preaching at the Jordan in the wilderness of Judea, and then continues on through the ministry of Jesus on into the ministry of the apostles. And so Jesus is here saying, so they say, that once John the Baptist shows up and the quote New Testament period begins, well, God has moved on. And now there's, with respect to the law and the prophets, those are no longer relevant to the modern Christian. I would argue that Jesus has just quoted a passage from the prophecy of Malachi, which last time I checked was in the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament. So it doesn't appear to me that Jesus has moved on from the law and the prophets to the point that, well, that was then and now this is now. And so this law and the prophets prophesied until John has to be taken into consideration along with passages like Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus says, don't think that a jot or a tittle, that the smallest Hebrew letter or the smallest piece of a Hebrew letter, the little squigglies on the end of the letter, is going to pass away until everything is accomplished. Jesus says, whoever then relaxes one of the least of these commandments will be considered least in the kingdom of heaven. And so Jesus is not anti-law of Moses. He's not anti the prophets. He's actually in the process, as he's speaking these words, of fulfilling some of these prophecies that are uttered by the Hebrew prophets in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. For all the prophets all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, verse 13. What might that mean? It means that this is all we had of the revelation of God through the prophetic word, Moses being a prophet, the prophets prophesying, until John showed up. He's simply noting the sequence of events. Now we have the revelation of God through this prophet, John the Baptist. He's not dismissing the law and the prophets or their legitimacy, their authority, their relevance. He's simply saying, now we have John, and God is continuing to speak to his people whom he loves.